Many people ask me questions about Stoic philosophy and practice. I've created this series to provide short answers to the most common, recurring, or confusing questions about Stoicism. The question is, which book should I read first? And it's specifically about Stoic literature. This came up in Facebook, but it's a great question about philosophy in general. It's a common concern that many people have. They want to begin with the right book or the best book or the book that's going to lay down the proper foundation for all of their future studies. And I have a few things to say about this. The shortest answer to this question is that there isn't any book that you should start with. There is no right book. There is no best book. There is no one-size-fits-all piece of literature that you should begin your studies of Stoicism with. Now, if I were a beginner wanting to get into Stoicism and I asked that question and I got that answer, I would say, wait a second, Dr. Sadler, that is profoundly unhelpful. What are you talking about? So let me give a longer explanation that's going to range over a few points. Let's begin by saying that in a way this frees you up. You can read whatever book is going to be helpful for you. I strongly suggest that at some point in time, you're going to want to actually read the classic Stoic texts. And by that I mean Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius. But you can begin, if it works for you, with some of the more popular Stoic literature that's out there. But, understand that you're getting somebody else's interpretation rather than the original source material, and that's okay. Now, why should I, as a scholar or researcher on Stoicism, adopt such a laissez-faire, or might even say lackadaisical attitude towards what you ought to read? It's not just because it has to do with you as an individual reader who can make their own decisions about what they want to read. It's also because I think it's good to get out of the way this notion that by reading the right text at the beginning, you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble or set down the right foundation or at least not get things wrong about Stoicism. That's not really the case. As a matter of fact, when it comes to philosophical literature, you should expect that the first time that you read something, you're probably not even going to get half of what's going on in that book. And you're probably going to have to go back to it. And you'll misremember things. And that's perfectly fine. That's normal. That's the way it works. That happens even with me today, rereading Epictetus after 25 years, maybe even more, of reading him. I still find stuff in there that I missed the last time around, and that is okay. So if that happens to me, it's going to happen to you. What you should expect is whatever book you pick, you're going to read that, and it may be very helpful for you, and then you're going to read some other stuff, and that's going to tell you more about Stoicism. Then you're going to come back to that first book and read it again, and you're going to get more out of it the second time. And instead of laying down a solid foundation that you're going to be building on, think of it more as an iterative process where you're getting closer and closer and closer to understanding what it is that these authors are trying to communicate to you. This iterative, ongoing process of reading and really discovery is something that is even more applicable to practical philosophy, which is what Stoicism is. It's a philosophy of life. So you can begin with Epictetus' Enchiridion and then, read a popular book or read, another classic Stoic text like maybe Seneca's On Anger, and then come back to Epictetus, and you're going to find that you understand more, that you've acquired something in the process. You might go from Epictetus' Enchiridion into his discourses, or you might read one of the great secondary works on Epictetus or on Stoicism in general. All of that is perfectly fine. It doesn't matter so much what book you start with. What matters is whether you're making a sort of ongoing commitment to studying Stoicism, because you can't get a full perspective on Stoicism from any of the secondary literature works out there, let alone the popular ones, And you also can't get it just from Epictetus or just from Seneca or just from Marcus Aurelius. If you really want to understand Stoicism, you've got to do some reading around and you've got to do some rereading. And that's great because, again, the more times you do that, the more you will be rewarded with developing a better and better understanding. So hopefully, hearing that answer, you feel kind of a sense of relief and liberation rather than just confusion and wishing that I'd said one book in particular. If you found this answer helpful for you, then please share it with others who might benefit from it. This work is entirely supported by crowdfunding on my Patreon site. So if you find it valuable, consider becoming a supporter at patreon.com/Sadler.